Wow, some of those properties in the Fleury area are just spectacular, and that one at Clayton Bay, Mandy, I'm not sure that we'd get that one for $1,000 a week.
Quite possibly not, Tim, but it would be nice to dream about, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Now, we've got some emails as always and some really good questions. The first one comes from a chap by the name of Clive Bobridge. He is interested in purchasing a property at auction, which is coming up shortly, but it's not advertised with a price, and what he's wanting to do is ensure that he doesn't pay more than he should. What are the things that he should be looking at?
Tim, this is always a difficult one for the consumer to sort of get their head around. You know, they're so used to seeing auctions with prices on them and knowing straight up where they sit within the pocket financially. I would believe Clive needs to speak to the sales agent who has it listed.
Yes.
And with the vendor's permission, that sales agent then can speak to him about the recent sales in the area and give him some statistics that will help him analyse whether he's sitting in the pocket to go to auction with this property.
Do you think that Clive can ask the agent what the price will be?
I think he can, but once again it would be on the vendor's instruction whether or not the agent can answer that. As agents, we work for our vendor, so we can only work on their instruction, and under the legislation as it sits now, we can't do that unless it's directed by the vendor. We would like to give them as much information as they can, and we will do so, but once again we want to keep the vendor in the loop of what we're giving out.
Okay, and I guess just generally, if he can get hold of some sales of other properties in the area, what are the general sorts of things he should be looking at? You know, comparing like with like. What sort of things would you suggest? If
he's got the recent sales, he would compare. Does it, you know, the land size, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, just the general stuff, and what's actually in the property? Does it compare with what's recently sold? You know, you can't compare a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom to the 1-bedroom unit. There's no comparison there. So a lot of this is common sense, is really just think about, you know, how does that compare in stature? And sometimes it's looking at other properties that are on the market at the same time. This is the one you love, this is the one you want, but how does it compare in that price bracket?
Excellent, okay. All right, well, I hope that answers Clive's question. Next one's from Mark Chasing. He's an 18-year-old from the country and moving to town for his first year of university, and he's wanting to know whether we can recommend any suburbs which have good rent but are still close to the city.
Sure. I think if you're going to move close to the city, you're always going to pay a little bit more than you would out in the suburbs. I think the thing for Mark to remember is there's always lots of student accommodation. There are share houses consistently being advertised where you actually pay for the room and share the amenities, which is probably good for somebody as 18 and moving from the country, so they're not sort of stuck in a little 1-bedroom apartment by themselves and feel isolated. I think if he wants more information, we can certainly, through our leasing department and Susie Hamilton-Flanagan, who's on our show, can help him find the right way and the right property for him, or help him find someone he can share with.
Okay, and just the last point to that, I guess, uni accommodation, we don't necessarily manage ourselves, but that's obviously a handy way of going as well.
It sure is. It's to be in touch with the uni because they have lots of uni accommodation. Of course, we don't handle it. We would often have the houses though that have the shared accommodation or the apartments. But for more information, I would get Clive to. We would get in contact with Clive and then take him through his specific needs as much as he needs to live near the uni. You know, what's his transport like, and try and help him in those areas and get him settled. Excellent. Well, Mandy, thanks for that. That's been good fun. You're welcome, Tim. It was good to be here. Terrific. Well, before we go, let's have a look at some of the hot properties coming on the market this week.
Well, that's it for today's show. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed our trip down the Fluria. On next week's show, one of SA's finest again, in Norwood, and more of Anthony's interview with Opposition Leader Isabel Redmond. I tell you what, looking at those beachside properties makes me feel like a swim. But before I go, a reminder, next week's show, TOOP TV, join us at 1 o'clock next Wednesday.